You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Weird Science. What is this? The Weird Science Comics YouTube channel. I'm here with my man, Gray. Japanese AI. What up, Gray?
We are back, baby. We are back. The
Yes,
Japanese AI is back, Jim, especially.
It's back. You can't hold it down. Now, here's the thing. People were asking, what's up? And I ended up, pretty much ditching a lot of videos for a little bit. I had some issues, things like that. This week, I'm actually sick. But I'm all pumped up because we're back to do this. But one of the things that really screwed us up, I said it on something I recorded yesterday, the time change. When you end up having the daylight savings and the clocks change in the U.S., that really screwed us up because usually we end up doing things early, my side. And I actually explained it as the idea. It's the perfect storm. You have to go to bed early for teaching them, and I don't like getting up early myself. So it's a really bad play. But that's kind of how it kind of ended up being. But we kind of found a time here. Not that I'm going to say
finally
every week.
I've been crazy busy as well, Jim. I've had work on weekends. There's been culture festivals, Japan festivals every week as usual.
It's every week there's a festival. It's Japan a festival or something it is. So we're here. I would like to be pretentious and say that we haven't done a show because there hasn't been any good books, but there has. And you'll see that we're impressed with a couple. And actually, when we go through these books this week, the ones that I do I like a lot. This is one of those where the books that I picked, and some of them you had already picked with me, a couple of them, especially at DC, they're not I'm trying to squeeze some in, which we have.
No,
we try not
we've
to.
done that in the past, haven't we?
Yeah,
a little bit.
Where we're
I just made it.
I'm telling you, there's times because we go with the idea that the best of is an 8 or above.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it today. Some people do probably go with the idea best of just means, well, what was the best book at Marvel? Even if you didn't like them, well, that was kind of the best. We don't play that game. We don't half step here. So we end up where sometimes we'll push it a little. I didn't have to push anything at DC. The 3 books that we ended up picking,
Jim,
I'm
so excited, and I'm really happy to say this. I'm really excited. DC are putting out great books again. That's how it feels. I've got me DC mojo back.
You're all in. You are.
In.
and so to explain to people too, we've mentioned this, but the idea we're more DC fans than Marvel.
It's true.
And with the indie stuff or the non-Big 2 stuff, we're fans of that. But I am through and through a DC fan first. That's my first comics that I read. They're the characters that I love. And just that's, where it's at. So it does usually kill me. And also I end up where when we do this, to pull the curtain back, I had just gotten done talking about DC books for a couple of hours. So sometimes it ends up where I talk crap on them for hours and we get on here and I can't even say anything, but we don't have that. And this all in, if you have been, as they say, sleeping on the DC, maybe you should wake up because there's some good books. And I end up getting in fights with people online. And I hate when people broad stroke the deal oh, DC sucks. And you're well, what are you reading? I haven't read anything for 10 years. There's a lot of people, and you could like in whatever you like or don't like, but maybe give something a try. And I'll tell you right now, just as a little tip, I think that 2 of the, maybe the 3, some people are against Scott Snyder, to give a little hint at some of the things. But I don't hear a lot of people badmouth Jeremy Adams or Philip Kennedy Johnson. They're pretty safe bet. And I think that you should check out their books at least as a
100%.
Kind of dip your toe back in.
Yeah.
And Jeremy Adams, he's a nice guy. Philip Kennedy Johnson is too, but Jeremy Adams, really nice guy. Kind of a nerd, which is kind of funny. But he's also coming out with a Green Lantern Corps book and an Aquaman book. And those are probably my big, exciting, I'm excited for those. I can't wait for those.
He's got me into the regular Green Lantern title. It's a character that I've never read, really. He's got me into it. Simple as that.
And a lot of people listen and watch our videos here and on your channel and all over the place. We have been pushing Jeremy Adams, and the big play was, oh man, why aren't DC, realizing? I think they're starting to realize they're putting him on an Aquaman and a Green Lantern Corps. And so he's on some big books. That's cool. Yeah, it did take a while. I actually talked to him at one point when The Flash, when he got kicked off of that, unfortunately, and Cy Spurrier came on. There was a point where he was really afraid that he wasn't going to be on any books. He was really, really upset and was really excited when he got Flash Gordon because at least he had something. But at one point, it did look like he was his comic writing dream might be done. Thank God that's
insane.
That's not the case. Yeah, he's crazy. So good. And he's so good. And that at one point I thought, well, he's good on family books. And then he's just a good writer. And why he's a good writer? He just writes fun comic books. I don't think he gets involved. Whatever nonsense that comes to mind when I say it. I don't mean just the standard stuff. I'm just saying he just writes good comics. They're fun. And they're what a lot of people get into comics for, even as a kid. So that's
you can tell he's enjoying it, can't you? You can tell he's someone who loves the medium. He loves comics and he loves writing good stories.
Yep. And just as a bonus, I say this all the time too. If you have a question or just he'll answer you. You just tweet him, and he'll 99.9% of the time he'll get back to you in a nice way. I've seen people bad mouthing him to it, like, "Hey, buddy, this," and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry," but like he's just a nice guy. He really is, and I think that he deserves all of
we know what to say, Jim. Nice guys finish last.
Yeah, and usually
that's what they keep telling me.
And that's the thing, though. I think that he even thought that at that one point. I'm not saying I'm best friends with him or anything, but we were talking for a bit. He did try to get the DC review copies back for us. He failed. That's where he failed me. Also, just think of Scott Snyder. Pretty big, right? He comes back. He's doing it. He actually said to me this week, "I'm going to get you those review copies back." I said, "Yeah. I'll believe that when I see it." He gets back to me, "Yeah, they ain't giving you those copies." I was like, "What the hell?" And this is the whole play of it.
It's crazy. He ends up, Scott Snyder couldn't pull it off.
And he's perplexed. He actually is like, "What did you do?" I'm like, "I don't know." And so he ends up saying to me, just as an aside, as a funny deal, he's like, "Man, they don't like you." And I'm like, "I know." Like, and he's like, "I don't mean the site. I mean you. Like, they hate you." I'm like, "Okay. I think I'm a okay guy. I don't know what happened. They used to like me, but yeah, they hate my guts." So there you go. But still, I would never use that as a way to I'm going to get back at them and talk crap, because we have a lot of DC books. Before we get into this, though, I want to remind everybody the rules of the game here. Please let us know what your best of the week are, your favorite books of this week, in the show notes or the comments. We're a little rusty, I'll say that. But in the comments, let us know, because even if they aren't the ones that we like, or even if they are the exact same ones and you want to tell us why, it's a cool thing, because this show is kind of geared to getting people to read more comics. And maybe it'll work. I don't know, because
I hope so.
Comics are really cool. That's my hot take of the night. I'm telling
comics make me happy, Jim. Despite all the madness, they really do make me happy.
You'll hear when we get to one of the last things we're talking about, a book that actually made me smile. That doesn't happen often. I'm not a big smiler. I'm usually very miserable. and also that you'll admit it to people too. It's one of the things that's the double-edged sword. You want to do videos, you want to do podcasts and things like that. It does then become a little bit of work. And there's sometimes when you're not even you don't even read to enjoy things. You read it because you have to, and you're getting it now. Yeah. But then there's some books, and there's a bunch this week that are it doesn't matter. It's so fun and so cool to read. But please let us know what books you liked, and it could end up where me and Gray weren't aware of something or we didn't get to it. There's a bunch of books that we didn't get to, or at least I didn't this week.
Same here. I've been so busy.
Just to let everybody know, I have shingles. And when I keep saying this, there's so many. But people keep thinking I have scurvy. Like I'm a pirate on the seven seas.
I'm an old Brit. That's
what I'm telling you. Legitimately, on the Comics Aficionados today, I'm like, yeah, I have shingles. And everybody's like, you got to eat lemons. One person's like, nobody's had shingles since 1658. I'm like, that isn't shingles. That's scurvy. Oh, and it's just if you're a little bit older and you had chickenpox. Yeah, I said I must be a pirate. But yeah, let us know what you thought. No fighting or whatever. I like to hear what people do like, because that gets me excited to maybe try something out that I haven't read. And that's always cool as well. We're going to start with DC. And we're going to start with you. I'll let you start out the deal, but the two books that you picked are straight up on my list, and they didn't have to squeak in. I really like them a lot. But what are you starting with?
We're going with the big one first. Let's go for Absolute Batman issue 2, written by Scott Snyder, art by Nick Dragotta.
Mm-hmm.
However you say it, Jim.
The art's great.
The art is awesome in this. Are you getting a little bit of manga vibes too?
Yeah,
especially the characters' faces, I was thinking at times.
And it combines in that, and I know that at some point Scott Snyder has mentioned that his kids and him are fans of manga, so that's kind of a cool deal. And again, Nick Dragotta doing it, it doesn't feel like it's like, oh, I want to get on that hotness. It feels natural, and it looks great. But I like it. I saw some people complaining about things, and I think they forget that this is a different version of Batman.
I know, right.
And so you can play up a lot of different things with it. And it's a vicious Batman, right? I mean, he is over the top, burning
that one
people
panel where
with
he's got a shuriken stuck in his head. He's got 2 knives sticking out of his back. It's like, look at this.
It's crazy.
It's cool. He's a mean
awesome.
Nearly swore there, Jim. Sorry.
Watch your mouth. You end up when you're doing this, though. I said when we did our review, and we're doing on the channel here, we're doing a live stream each time an issue comes out on Friday at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Things went a little wonky again. I'm not real great with the live streams. By the end, just to let everybody know how much of an idiot I am, I thought that I had stopped the live stream. It went for 6 more hours, so I ended up having to put up an actual
7-hour
edited review. Yeah, oh my God, people are like, what the heck? Some guy I felt bad seemed like he was in the chat for 6 hours, just by himself yelling, is anybody there? But in the meantime, when we were talking about it, yes, it was. I didn't want to embarrass you. The idea of Absolute Batman, it's only 2 issues in. So you're still kind of laying loose with like, what's different? Let's see. And this was more of like a transition type issue, or like a world building or character building than I think the first one, in the idea that you have the rogues gallery that are friends with Bruce. But what I also think that is cool, and I think we'll probably get more development of it, is why is this Batman more vicious? And he lost his father a little different way. I really do think, and it does look like it's weird because suddenly in this, it's like he's kind of estranged from his mom, even though we saw him go visit his mom.
Yeah, this isn't clear, is it?
Right?
Has he got mommy issues? There's something going on there.
And I think that one of the things that we're getting, and I think that what, Scott Snyder might be doing, and it's kind of funny in the current state of DC books, I think that this Batman might be more vicious in the way is because he didn't have an Alfred. And Alfred's there now and it looks like Alfred will join up with him in that, but he kind of is on his own. His mom, and I think that the idea of not having a father figure or a male figure, I think this has made him a little more vicious, and he doesn't know when to pull back, because you even have Alfred when he's there, and it's like, okay, retreat, almost as if he is almost like a father watching a son do something or play a sport. I thought that was really cool. And I didn't see many people talking about that aspect of why is he very vicious. A lot of people are like, well, it's just this universe and things like that. But I think that it's the one book of the 3, and I liked Wonder Woman. Superman not as much, but still liked it more than other people. I like all of them. Superman the least, but Batman just seems like it's just, people have explained it. Dylan on the Comics Aficionados said it's just big dumb fun, and I actually like that. It's
entertaining. It is, like you say, it's a fun issue. Crazy scenes of action in there, but it's nicely mixed up with some scenes of, like you say, the Rogues Gallery in this. They're all playing cards together. They're playing poker or something, aren't they? That was a cool scene. I really enjoyed that. It was
cool. When you have the idea where, Harvey Dent's there and he's like, hey, I'm doing this thing. Oh, you Two-Face. I'm like, yeah, you're getting a little crazy. No Jokers allowed here. And I'm like, but it still was kind of, it seems fun. Very tongue-in-cheek the way that they did it. But in this, so funny. You have a Batman with no money, yet he has the biggest dump truck Batmobile I've ever seen in my life.
My God.
He built into the building that ends up where all I could think of, and I talked on the review, is when they were building this building, how did he convince them to get these giant wheels and put them into this building? Hey, put the wheels right there. Like it makes no real sense, but it's fun. And a lot of times I can, overlook some things. I think it's fun. I know that a lot of people
it's not meant to be realistic, right?
Exactly.
That's what I say. That's what I tell myself anyway.
And if you're going to do something like that, make it cool. It's cool in a roll your eyes kind of way, but just, oh my, Batman's insane, and you have that going. But I thought it was good. I thought it was good. You get Jim Gordon and Martha. It seemed like they're a little too close, but we'll see how it goes from there. But I really did like it. I liked it a lot.
That's as much as the first issue between them.
Yeah, I thought the dialogue's really good. I think Scott Snyder's nailing that. Again, the forced bit of saying names and stuff was fun, but you end up the big difference is Bruce grew up Crime Alley, ends up having all the rogues as his friends, and in the main story of the here and now, Selina's off doing something. They don't know where she is. They're like, well, I got a postcard from Cairo. Bruce doesn't. But then you go back and you see that after Thomas Wayne died, Selina was there for him, and it seems like she's the only one he really wants to see. So that was cool too. The way it ended, I thought, that's kind of cute, and I want to go with
you
that.
know, Jim, on League of Comic Book Geeks, Scott Snyder had put like a comment in before it came out, and he says, "Wait till you see the final page." So I was really hyped up for like something
just
crazy.
Selena, were you like,
yeah, okay? Is he like suggesting that Selena's kind of not teaching Bruce, but maybe she's bringing him out of his shell after his father's
I think
death?
that's what it is, and I think he's going like Batcat or like you know what I mean, like
making a connection that could be good. That could lead to something good.
If people are collecting, it is the first appearance of this absolute Catwoman. Like that might be something too. But I like it. I really and the art really sells it. I think that the art does a really good job, and I'm in. I really like the absolute stuff. I'm looking forward to this is the thing. I'm looking forward to Wonder Woman. A lot of people I saw pish-poshing it and not liking it. I liked it. I liked it a lot. I thought there was more layered in that than Kelly Thompson has ever done. I thought that it like nuanced more than she does. So people do suggest somebody's helping her, but I don't care. If they are, that's fine. Superman, I just hope gets better. I didn't love sticking to, the whole Krypton thing and whatever.
You're not a big fan of Krypton, are you, Jim?
No,
I know. I understand that.
It's the idea of like getting involved in something that you know is just going to be destroyed. And it's just, I get it, but it's too much. But we'll see how that goes. We'll go to the next book. I'll let you say this one as well, which I really liked as well.
Okay, this is Batman and Robin, issue 15. Should be issue 2, as you said, Jim, and you're right. Written by Philip Kennedy Johnson. It's got 2 artists. There's only 2 pages of art by Carmine Giandomenico, but also Javi Fernandez is the main artist. And I like his art, although I've heard some criticism of it. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan, but I like it. No, this is the thing. Normally, I like it in this book. I thought he did a really, really good job because he does do like emotions a lot. The facial expressions. I think they were right on in this.
They are good.
And the first issue, I thought Philip Kennedy Johnson was bad with Damian. I thought he had reverted Damian. And that's the one thing that going from Joshua Williamson, I thought the story in the Batman and Robin book was garbage, as the French say. It really wasn't good. You went and jumped around from, terrible trio, splicing.
What was it?
Then
Hush,
you ended up
shush.
Then you end up Cult of the Man Bat. Then you end up having supposed, Zaz's son, the soccer goalie, like then Mistress Harsh.
I dropped it. I stopped reading it. Yeah.
Principal. There was so many things. And Joshua Williamson, I'm not a huge, though you'll see later, I did love something this week, but I'm not a huge fan of his because I do think that he gets really distracted with things. He'll add a ton of things and then things that seem cool. I don't know what it is. It doesn't seem to work
in DC, whether it's if you found that. It's strange.
I agree. And even when people tell me, like, they're like, oh, the Robin book was great. The Robin book had great like his character work with Damian is great. It's unbelievably great. I love it because I like Damian. But the stories around him, like that Lazarus tournament, it just fell apart. Most people, when I do talk to them, this is my whole deal, is I say, who won the tournament? And a lot of people don't even know. And they read all the deal that Connor Hawk did. And so you end up with, but I love the characters, Flatline. I actually like triple XL or double XL, little kid there. But a lot of the characters are really good. But this thing, and that's why there's no reason they shouldn't have started this as a new number 1. It's so disconnected away from it feels like it's bigger. It means more. It takes it more serious than anything Joshua Williamson did. That was just like, that's done. Let's get to a new number 1 so people know where to start. And unfortunately, I saw what sales numbers are available. First issue of his Batman and Robin. Like the idea, hey, Philip Kennedy Johnson, Batman and Robin, you should check it out. Who is going to know to go to issue 14? I know you could go and check it out, but people are already wary of asking questions. And I don't like asking questions when I go. So it's just not easy to get to, and it's really good, especially this issue where you see that Damian realizes he can't save everyone, and that little girl that he was mean to in the issue before, she dies, and it shocked me that they were doing that. And this is the thing with Damian, quickly, the idea that people don't like him, and I always say to them, listen, I know he's a prick, right, he's a jerk, he ends up, but he's that for a reason. He ends up where...
It's the way he was brought up.
It is. Yeah. He was brought up. Then he goes and he's Batman's son. So he thinks that, oh, God, like everybody thinks I have to do it. So he tries harder then. Then he tries to tell everybody how he's the best Robin. So he's got to really go over the top. But when you get the moments where he actually lets down the facade, it's so good. And this is one of them where he actually whispers to the doctor that's there where they were having that big gala, that big auction deal or like benefit. And he says, please, can you save her? Because he doesn't know what to do.
I don't know what to do, yeah. That was so well set up during the last issue. They were getting... Damien's, like, the way he was written was getting criticised. Oh, he's made him an asshole again. But it was to make this payoff here in this issue.
Yeah, I said on the podcast this week that he set us up for it. He set us up to get mad and then do that. Yeah. Because Damien goes to this gala and it's like, I don't want to be here. I'm Robin. I'm so much better and I want to do Robin stuff. And then when he has to do Robin stuff, it's not enough. And this girl dies and he was mean to her. So that's like the last thing, I was mean to her. And yet, again, he has like an identity crisis, something that triggers people in DC.
It's really good.
It is.
Character
and
growth.
you see that, all that, nonsense when he's kind of a prick. A lot of it is made up. It's him putting out that so that you think he's cool because he's insecure. And this makes it even more. And then you go forward with this Memento story that we ended up saying is a lot like we're doing on our Patreon. The idea of the Batman Gothic by Grant Morrison. It has that feel to it.
It does have that feel, yeah. Isn't that weird? Coincidence, Jim? Whatever.
Yeah. Everybody seems to be grabbing onto Morrison's stuff anyway, so why not? So the thing, when Joshua Williamson, and I think when people get a Batman and Robin book, I don't think this is that crazy to say. It usually is a Robin book. This is still, it's more of a Robin book, right? You're going through Damian stuff, but a lot of times, and Joshua Williamson, I think, did this to make it a Robin book. And Robin, so he made Batman kind of dumb. That if you go back and look at that whole run that Joshua Williamson had, Batman didn't do much. He was told things. Somebody would say, "Oh, this is where this is," or "Hey, here's a clue." He didn't really do things. It was like the only thing he would say is that he knew that Shush was, connected to Hush. That's all. And so in this, though, I think that Philip Kennedy Johnson does a good job. Like Batman's thinking back at his training. He's going to now train Damian that way. We see, and it's fun to see Damian actually still getting trained. He's just a kid. So there's more to learn.
Training scenes are great. Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
Really good.
Kind of head to head.
The one thing that I didn't like is Damian's like pretty much like, this girl died and all, and then they're fighting and training, and Batman's like, you're distracted. I'm like, yeah, I think he is. He saw this girl die, he told you.
Yeah.
But this goes back to his training in England, jolly old England. And the idea of this Memento, the big thing of it is, if people, recognize when you're reading it, when Memento came, and he thinks it's a copycat, but that whoever it is knows that Batman used the name Jack in England because he called him Jack last issue, and then you see it was a cool setup to see that.
Oh yeah,
so
actually, I missed that
crazy.
First time
it's
round,
crazy.
Yeah.
So I think Bruce is always wrong. I mean, how many times did he say there was no Court of the Owls?
It's just a copycat killer.
Yeah.
You're
so
wrong,
I'm
Bruce.
like, and I think it, or if anything, because of the amount of characters, whatever, it might be his mentor.
Oh, it could be.
Might be John, but that guy's really old too. It's crazy. Yeah. I think it's his old headmaster, Mr. Winchester, as Mr. Whisper.
Mr. Whisper. Oh my God.
Oh, it's crazy, but I really like it.
What do you think of Robin's costume in this? We've got the hood on and stuff.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. Again,
detective work. I really like that part.
The deal is, like I said, I'm not a huge fan of Javi Fernandez, but I did like this more. And I even thought that when you see the girl, because she's just a little bit, he made her like more cartoony so that it wasn't like really vicious. And I thought that actually made it even show that she's such a little girl. And then she's dead. Yeah. I thought it was really good.
I liked his work on King Spawn. He did the first like run of that, so I got into it. And he's got a kind of distinctive style. It's not that detailed.
It's always
simple
dark
line.
and
it's dark, shadowy.
Thing, but it fits the story. And even I like the idea where you have that Dr. Bashir, where he realizes that Damien like goes into like fatherly doctor mode, and he's talking like, "Let me tell you a story, Damien." Damien's losing it, and he's so upset. But it was really good. And again, if you weren't into the, Joshua Williamson, or just dropped it like, hey, I had enough of that, this is really good. It is the first issue. The first issue I thought was a little bit like not great with Damien, but I think it makes up for it, and it was a setup. He set us up like a jerk.
Great cliffhanger as well. A great set piece at the end.
Yeah, It was really cool. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the next issue. I'll go with my next pick, the last one at DC. It's Green Lantern. Number 17, we talked about Jeremy Adams earlier, and I like Sermonico's art a lot.
Oh, this is amazing.
Yeah.
I love it.
I don't know if I told you, I actually talked to Sermonico on the phone at one point because he's friends with Bruno Redondo, and I was talking with him and doing this is a while back, but I was talking to him. He didn't, his broken English, but it was funny because I ended up where it was these interview things I used to do, these goofy things. So I said, oh, I'll get him involved. I'm like, so how'd you come up with this name, Sir Monaco? And he's like, oh, it's my porn name. And I'm like, oh, I like this guy. He's pretty funny.
Great
He's
answer.
pretty funny. I was like, oh, yes. But yeah, the art's great. And Jeremy Adams, again, I think the best writer at DC. At the moment, I'm looking forward to the other books. And this one, I did see people even saying like, oh my God, this is bigger than like, say, Brightest Day and Darkest Night. I'm like, yeah, that's high praise, but it does feel big. And if you're a Kyle Rayner fan, by the end, you get him back as the White Lantern, it looks like. And even in a little bit at the end, it looks like the Guardians have all been in the source all this time that we might get that. Like a lot of things are going, and it looks like you kind of get that idea since they did have the solicits and announced the Green Lantern Corps book that you're dealing with a lot of things like that. Now, you said to me, you didn't quite put it on the list only because there is the stuff that you don't understand. I'm guessing is the stuff that's from the Philip Kennedy Johnson and the the War Journal and the stuff with the source and the idea of the Revenant and all that Varon.
I was reading that in the beginning, but I kind of lost track of it. So this was a little bit confusing for me, Jim. There's a lot going on.
And when I talked about it on the podcast, I did try to, because Eric, who I do the DC podcast, he's going on about continuity and stuff. He's like, well, actually, this. I'm like, I don't even know what you're saying.
Continuity king, after
exactly.
all.
So when I end up where the thing that you have to realize is the stuff that with Varon, it's not Jeremy Adams stuff. That was more of the Philip Kennedy Johnson stuff. And now not only does he have to explain some of the things again, but he also has to fit it into the story he was already telling. And I think that he is, and that's why Eric, who did like War Journal more than me, or say a Dylan, who will teach me how it is. It's a big joke because I didn't like it as much. But the idea where he is twisting and turning some things, he's changing things slightly or whatever, but it's to make the story work more. But yeah, you find out what happened with Jessica Cruz. You find out, well, you have Kelly, the Teen Lantern, which I think is a cool callback, even though people hate Bendis. But I always like Kelly. You end up where we're still wondering what's going on with Kilowog because he's going with the Yellow Lantern deal. But one of the big things was Mogo coming in. I thought that the issue was really good. And then at the end, it's like, holy crap, like we are getting the full spectrum. We have the White Lantern, Kyle Rayner. And when he does go in at the end and he ends up going into the source, he's going there. The prophecy pretty much is that he's going to die. He thinks he's going to die. He's going to save everybody dying. It's a real
I have to
big
save
sacrifice.
the spectrum.
Yeah, and he's going to go.
Screaming.
The one thing that I don't like, and DC drives me nuts, they can never lay with something. The idea where don't have that extra page. You don't have to reveal that Kyle is alive. Let us think about it and talk about it and lose our minds for a month until the next issue. Start out with that's huge. If you go back in and like, oh God, he's alive. That'd be so cool. They never do it anymore. They always want to pull the trigger and then they pull back right away, immediately in one page. Hey, by the way, Kyle's alive. And it seemed like that was even added. Like, oh man, everybody's going to lose it, whatever. Well, that's kind of fun. So you have that. But it's really good and the art's really good. And again, it is a bit, I can't say that it's a real great, like, hey, just jump in. There's a lot of stuff going on. A lot of stuff was the War Journal stuff with the Revenant Queen and the Revenant Dead. And you have Ellie, the construct in this who ends up, there's a lot of stuff, but I did like it. I thought it felt really big.
Jeremy Adams to bring all that into it and make it make sense, kind of, even for, for someone like me who's pretty new to everything. God, it's a great cosmic story, Jim, which feels huge to me.
Mm-hmm. And
really
it's
huge.
fun. At points when you ended up having Hal, and one of the other criticisms I heard was that there's not a lot of Hal, and there isn't. But some people don't like Hal, so it doesn't. But when Hal and John Stewart come flying in, Mogo's there, like behind him, I thought it was like the greatest thing. Like, it actually reminded me. At one point, it reminded me when they do, and Guy Gardner's like, yeah, it's about time. It kind of had a Star Wars feel to it. Like Han Solo.
Guy Gardner, Jim, come on, then it would be perfect. We love it, don't we?
Guy gets walloped, and he ends up like, and he's bleeding. He's like, I've been hit harder than that, and it's so good. It's one of my favorite Guy Gardner moments was when he got the crap kicked out of him by Doomsday. He was trying to, help Superman in the Death of Superman story. His eyes were swollen shut. He couldn't see. And they're all like, Guy, oh my God, can I help you? And he goes, point me to where that thing is. And I'm good. And that's all. He couldn't even see. And he's blasting it with the ring. Oh, I love Guy. He's my favorite. So yeah, it was really cool. You get Alan Scott. And this, you get like all hands on deck. The weird part, you end at last issue with Carol Ferris and coming face to face with the Predator, the actual Star Sapphire entity. We didn't have any of that. And luckily we didn't have Sorrow Lantern. But I did like that. But that is it for DC. we're going to move off. And again, I said this was going to be quick. We're already at the point where we usually are. Oh my goodness!
Breaking records.
Well, we haven't done it in a while. I did say the last time we did it, if you remember, it was a while. I think we went almost 50 minutes, and people seem to like it. So there you go. There you go. They like it.
Goodness
but the next we'll go to Marvel. I don't have a Marvel book. If you are wondering out there, I did not like Amazing Spider-Man 61, Joe Kelly on it. And I might make a video of the idea of how this is going to go about and who's going to come and take his place, because I ended up seeing something and thinking something that,
have you heard
it
the
definitely
rumors,
shows.
like who's taking over?
Oh, yeah, I've heard two big rumors.
Okay.
Justina Ireland, that everybody knows because she's already been announced.
She's going to be co-writing this one, isn't she?
Yeah, and Lansing and Kelly. I keep hearing that.
Oh, my goodness,
I
really?
don't know what is the worst pick of those. Lansing and Kelly. I saw a tweet of theirs, and they were talking about, because they have the Thunderbolts thing coming back, which people did like that a bit, but they call themselves the Hive Mind. But they say it themselves, and it feels weird. It's like they're giving themselves a nickname, and I hate that. Like if I came on and like, hey, it's me, Mr. Big Dong, or something like that. That's what it felt like, and I just
That's your porn name, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it is. Sir Monaco gave it to me, so I'm very proud of it. But yeah, those are the things I heard. But I was thinking about it today about why I definitely know that Joe Kelly's on for the short term. But I'll make a video for that, probably, maybe. I'm also going to make a video, I did say, and people are already yelling at me, the idea that the video, and I was going to title it, Why Am I the Only One Who Likes the New 52? Because everybody keeps attacking me about it, so I might make that as well. But we're
Can't wait to make that. That's going to be epic, Jim. Like a 12-hour podcast video.
Yeah, really. I was telling people about that today. It was nonsense when we had a 12-hour weekly podcast. I did go back and look at some show notes. It was ridiculous. But,
no idea how you managed that.
Well, the one time I said we started at 7 at night and we stopped at 7 in the morning, and I almost cried when the sun came up while we were still recording. It was like the most depressing thing ever. But we'll move to Marvel. I don't have a Marvel book. Like I said, I read a bunch of Marvel. Marvel is just an avalanche of Venom War stuff, and I'm not into it. I tried, but I don't like it.
I've only got one, Jim, but we almost had one together, didn't we? Almost made it. Let's give it honorable mention, because I can't believe this. I went in thinking I was going to hate it. It was Psylocke issue 1 by Alyssa
and
Wong.
People are going to kill us about it.
It was actually decent.
And we don't have it on, so don't tell us. I'm telling you, it's one of the better starts of a series for Alyssa Long. And sometimes she does start out okay. I actually like the beginning of her Afra, and then it just, everything tanks because I don't think she really has the storytelling chops. And then she gets, mired in some
She's
things.
Not a comic book fan as far as I know. She wanted to make it in short stories and story writing, and she's a good horror short story writer, but I just don't get that feeling that she knows enough about comics.
I don't
really
think she knows
the way to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and again, you want to go with the idea, I think that I could say that Jeremy Adams loves comics and read comics, most of his life, as Eric Shea did. But yeah, the idea that you can tell there's that little thing that they have, and I'm not even just saying like, oh, their pacing's better. You get like that joy of it, and it's one of those things. But yeah, we'll put that as an honorable mention because I was shocked. And just if you want to give somebody crap, I only read it because Wes at Thinking Critical, me and him do a thing on his Patreon, and he said, oh, you should read it. It's one of her better starts. I'm like, yeah, we'll see. And I read it, and I'm like, yeah, it's not bad. It's one of those things that the bar's so low that you read it and like, I didn't get that mad. It must be pretty good, but I thought it was pretty good.
It wasn't 8 out of 10 for me, but it was kind of close, and because it wasn't, what I was expecting, it's like, oh, this is good, it's exciting, some good action scenes, I like it, Japanese bias Jim with a, Psylocke,
yeah,
a bit of a ninja character.
And I like the character too. I like the character, and just as another side with the deal is, like, I feel the same way a lot with Stephanie Phillips' books. I start like, okay, that's pretty cool, and then it just kind of tails off. She hates us. Gabe ruined that, but you go with your pick because it's one that people do end up mentioning.
It's a bit divisive again, but it is Uncanny X-Men issue 5, written by Gail Simone, art by David Marquez. And again, I'm not the biggest X-Men fan. I don't know that much about the characters, but for me, I just enjoy the writing in this. I enjoy Gail Simone's dialogue. I like Rogue and Gambit. I like the way she writes them. And Jim, this comic made me feel things like, actually got emotional at one point. It's like, what's going on?
The kid coming back.
Yeah.
It was good. And here's the thing. It wasn't on my list, but it's closer than a lot of the Marvel stuff.
Okay.
And when you talk about the X-Men books, like, I don't see a lot of people talking about him in general anyway. And most people will say, well, I'm still reading Uncanny. Most people will read X-Men and Uncanny X-Men because they're the flagship
they're the main
deal.
two.
I don't like, I like some things with Jed McKay, not as X-Men. And I didn't like, say, Blood Hunt. I think that he's better with smaller characters like a Moon Knight. I actually really liked his Black Cat book, but I think he's better with a couple characters, small team. Like his Avengers, I can't read either. I think that he gets in his head that he's got to go too big. But Gail Simone, and again, this is the other thing too. When you mention Uncanny X-Men and you say, there's so many people that be like, oh, well, they just don't like Gail Simone because of her on Twitter. And, kind of put that aside when you read.
That's what you gotta do. Yeah.
There's not enough good books out there at the moment to end up picking and choosing. And again, I'm never going to tell people they can't or shouldn't or whatnot have read. That's up to you. And there's other people like a Mark Waid that people will not because of his political views or he's kind of a jerk, whatnot. But Gail Simone, she does stupid tweets. They're annoying at times. I get it. But, there's not enough good books, so, to throw it aside.
She seems to have calmed down a bit these days.
I think she kind of learned her lesson a little, maybe.
But just focus on the stories, focus on telling a story.
And in it, I was really I was into the Krakoa stuff until I wasn't. And I always blame, it was Teenie Howard. And a lot of her stuff that ended up getting in. Aaliyah Williams came in, and there was a lot of these books that I didn't like. And I just, at the end of the first Hellfire Gala, I galloped myself out. I galloped my ass out of there. And I'm like, I'm not reading this. I just wasn't into it.
That just got ridiculous.
Like me and you talk about it, we're not real big lifelong X-Men fans. So I'm reading it to have fun or learn. When I'm not having fun, then I just bail, and I bailed at that point. But that's still, down the line a bit. I ended up getting to that. I'm already done with every X-Men book. Besides X-Men, like the ones that I would say that I like, besides Ultimate. And I'm
still reading Ultimate, Jim, but I've got the Japanese bias with that. I like Peach Momoko's style. I like the Japanese culture.
People give me so much crap about liking Ultimate. I haven't read the last two issues, so that kind of shows that it's kind of the whole Ultimate deal. I'm kind of bored with anyway. But the two X-Men books that I still read, is Uncanny. And I always want to say Factor, but that's not.
X-Force.
It's X-Force. X-Force is the other one that I'm reading.
Is that any good? Because I've dropped it.
It's okay. It's still not great, but it actually has, a mission statement, anomalies. Yeah, I like Forge. I like that. It feels kind of like they're just like sleepwalking through it at points, but a big death last week. But overall, like X Factor, I hate. I don't like Mark Russell's writing. NYX is just god awful. What's exceptional is just eye rolling. Like these aren't just like the idea of I don't really like. I hate them. Like I'm reading and I'm like I hate this. So why?
They're putting out too many books. They should focus on like 2 or 3, main titles, and that's it. It's just ridiculous now with all these,
And I like the first issue of like some of them. I even forgot like Wolverine. I like the first issue.
Yeah,
not
that
so
was
much
good.
The second.
First issue.
And
second
then
was
Psylocke will probably, that's what I was saying. It's like,
I thought Phoenix was all right as well.
Phoenix was okay. Again, Stephanie Phillips that I said, but even that up to this point, I'm like not that interested. So it's a shame because I really want to get into the X-Men. I desperately want to. And I know people say, well, you should read all their stuff, whatever. I like reading comics as they're coming out. So we talk about them and the excitement of getting them each time they come out. But yeah, the X-Men stuff, it's kind of dead books walking. Is what it is, but Uncanny is and it does have some emotional
like people saying it's maybe a bit too focused on Rogue and Gambit, but she's bringing in like a kind of young new mini team. There's like 4 new characters in it, which I'm enjoying the way they're being developed. And the big bad in this, Jim, the big bad felt like really dangerous. Like she almost killed Rogue. Like Rogue's almost in pieces at the beginning of this issue.
Yeah, and then ends up getting help from the dead kid. Crazy. I actually just like every time Rogue says sugar, an angel gets his wings. It makes me laugh every time. Every time I'm reading, I'm like, sugar. I love it. I think it's so funny. But yeah, really. That's it for Marvel though. That's it. I thought that overall, sometimes when we're doing this, I'll say like, oh, I know somebody will pick that, or I know that I really don't see a lot at Marvel. And Marvel, while their sales are seemingly better than DC, they are hurting. They are really hurting when we do stuff and we make videos and we try to, read the stuff and it's a slog to try to get through just basic books there. That's a problem. I think they have to change some things. They have to change
your Marvel
some
podcast,
things
you were doing quite a few books maybe a year ago,
we would do.
you?
Yeah, we would
now
do 3 or 4.
Just got one or two at the most.
A lot of times, like and people seem to like it more than me and Matt. But last week or the week before, we ended up doing Ultimates. We didn't want to do that. We dropped it, and that was the only book that we could even see. Like, okay, we'll do that. It's just there's not a lot, and it should change maybe when you get out of that Venom War stuff.
Venom War is just ridiculous.
It's just
over
bad.
The top.
Every time I say to myself, "Okay, I'm going to look at the main Venom War book. If it's good," and I say to myself right before, if they're wrestling still, I'm going to lose it. They're wrestling still. I'm like, I'm going to lose it. And I like wrestling, but not
you
like that.
You got wrestling, Jim.
No, I don't.
Venom
I really
War.
like that. Only in Venom where they're doing stupid wrestling. But we'll go to the indie stuff, the non-big 2. They're both from Image. One's
I think you should do yours.
Yeah,
well, do yours first. Do the big one first.
You want to do that, and then we'll end with yours. Mine is Image Skybound G.I. Joe, #1. I not only think it was the best issue of this week, I think it was one of the best issues of the year because I loved it. This is the one I said earlier that I had a smile on my face when I read it. And just to say, I read it and reviewed it on Tuesday. We end up getting the review copies. I said in my one review, we're fancy. So we get the review copy. We review it on Tuesday. I already read it, talk about it. When I got done, I never do this. I actually went and read it again while I was just laying in bed because I'm like, oh, it's so cool. So I read it again and then decided after I saw Gabe's sus review, nonsense, I made another review reading it again. And every time I liked it more.
Oh, that's
so
great. That's great to hear. I was late to it, Jim. Like I told you, I hadn't even finished reading it when we were going to do this show, but it does look really good. What I've read half the issue, and it's a bit of an intro. It's a bit of a kind of like
is. Well,
catching
Gabe
people
ended
up.
up saying that, like the idea of like, oh, it's basic, but it's the #1.
It has to,
and it does it in a quick way. I like he made it seem like, oh, they introduced the characters again. It's like 2 panels for each, and they're small panels, and they're cool, and go with the idea of like the personal touch of how Duke thinks of them, and it's really cool. And
I think that's done really well.
Yeah, I thought it was great. And Tom Riley's art, because it is Joshua Williamson and art by Tom Riley. I think that's great. Gabe is totally sus and really ripping Jordi Belair for the colors. It fits the book. I think it looks great. It's a little muted, the colors themselves, but it fits and almost looks classic in my mind. And look, I think it looks great.
I do too. Yeah,
I think it's really good. And so in that, I won't spoil everything because there's some huge stuff that happens by the end. But you get the Joes kind of coming together. You end up having Colonel Hawkeyes trying to give, Duke some pointers. Hey, don't make the team all Dukes. We have you. You're great. But these others. And I love Baroness. I think the Baroness in this is so. At the beginning, they're doing a training thing and her jetpack that she's wearing kind of, fizzles out. It fritzes out. And she almost dies. Duke ends up saving her.
She's the best character, Jim. She's the most interesting, and she's the funniest character in it.
Oh, she's so good. She gets out. She throws the jetpack and like, you stupid Americans. I'm like, oh, it's so funny. I wanted her to yell about Yankee blue jeans. You Yankee blue jeans are yelling. It was so good. And I'm like,
your equipment sucks, America.
It's great. And so when you have that, so many people who are big G.I. Joe fans, they just can't get past it. It seems like they're like, I just can't accept that. I think it's so cool that she's on the team. I think it's great. Yeah. And I even said on the aficionados, because Dylan's he's more the G.I. Joe fan than I am. He ends up where he's like, yeah, I don't like it, whatever. Like, I love it. I think it's so cool. And I know that she's going to, turn on them and do something, but I kind of hope she doesn't. I think that the interaction, her and Stalker, when she starts cursing him out in Russian and he just gives it back to her and she looks like she's never heard an insult like that. The funny thing is you can Google Translate it. Translator, it is actual Russian that they're yelling. When you translate it, I actually suggest don't do it because it's not as funny. It's funny when you don't know what they're saying and you end up having Baroness so upset.
Don't translate it. Yeah,
it's really not that great a crap talk once you do, but you even get a new character that's introduced. I thought that was cool. It threw me off at first, but that's probably the only thing that it pulled me back a little because you spend a lot of time. I get it. But I wanted to see more. And then basically when you go to Destro and Cobra Commander and you end up getting the laser guns like in the car, it's great. And
they are so funny in this. I love their kind of head-to-head, their tete-a-tete.
So good.
It's great, isn't it? Destro and Cobra
it's
Commander.
The best. And you get when Cobra Commander, first off, it's like Darth Vader. He ends up not having his mask on. He's horrific. I love the idea that Destro comes in and he's like, he's so vain. He's grabbing for that helmet, puts it on. But then the big thing is, hey, what's this new weapon you have? Oh, here. And he's like, oh, really? A rifle? That's very cute. And then he's like, no, try it. Let's see your aim, and he points it right at Destro's face.
Destro, that's the best bit in the book, Jim.
So great. And then Destro's just like, he's like, I'm not amused. And then the thing that's the best is it is the laser gun. It's an Energon laser gun. Pretty cool way of mixing it and getting the laser guns from the cartoon. But Cobra Commander loves it. When he starts hissing like that, it's great.
Jesus.
And then what it does later, again, we won't spoil everything. What happens, it does tie in loosely a bit with the Transformers. You end up where Cybertron, when they were bringing that, it kind of got cut off. They do have a piece of Cybertron that they're guarding. In the meantime, it's one of the best plays I've seen. And Joshua Williamson, like, you can tell he loves this, right? He's so good with it. And Duke was great. One of my favorite books.
Oh, that was really, really good. That's what got me to read this. Tom Riley on this as well.
I'm not a real big Joshua Williamson fan, but I love these books. I love them. And
he seems to work better on indies, doesn't he? Than he does,
yeah. DC. Yeah, exactly. So, and there's a spread page I thought was one of the best things, because you have Duke on one side talking about this, artifact, the Cybertron. In the meantime, on the other side, you have Destro, and you see the back and forth of how different they are. And then in the bottom, you just have Cobra Commander yelling, we're going to kill everybody. And that made me laugh so much, where he's like, listen, all right, like, he's so over the top, and he's like, you go and kill everybody but one person so they can yell Cobra. I'm like, oh, you are the best. And then there's a big battle, and Duke's badass, Baroness is badass. The only thing, too, that really wasn't I wanted to see more with Clutch and CoverGirl. You didn't get much with them, and I love CoverGirl. I like Clutch too. All the characters that they have in this, they're like,
see, I don't know some of the characters, so I'm a little bit out of it. That's the weird thing too. And you'll notice we don't have Transformers on our list, but I don't have a lot of connection with Transformers. I did watch a lot of the G.I. Joe cartoon, so I ended up liking this a bit more because I have the connection that I think a lot of people have with the Transformers. And when I say that, I really push the idea. I have never seen a second of anything Transformers. Never watched live action movies. Never saw the cartoon movie. Never saw the show. I just wasn't interested in it. But G.I. Joe, I always got a kick out of. It's more of the the names and the deal. I always thought that they were funny. But yeah, I loved it. Just to say, I think I gave it a 9.7, and that's one of the higher things I've done in quite some time. I loved it so much. Well, that's good to hear. That's what comics are meant to do. They're meant to make us happy, Jim.
And I was all happy, and I'm a miserable prick. So I really enjoyed it. So you go. We have one more book. We went way over the time deal, but what is your last pick?
Just quickly, it's the concluding part to Precious Metal from Image. It's issue 6, written by Darcy von Polgeest. Crazy psychedelic art by Ian Bertram, who doesn't sound French with that name, Jim, but his style is like, the heavy metal style, the beautiful, almost Mobius style, really weird art.
Yeah, that sounds like he's like from London town.
It does, doesn't it? Oh, Ian Bertram, mate.
Ian Bertram?
What, Mary Poppins?
I'm telling you, I'm doing, do you have a chimney to sweep, does you? Ian Bertram's like, get the hell out of here. But you go with the book.
So I don't think many people are reading this, to be honest, but from what I've heard about it, it's been like a 5-year labour of love by the creators, and they've been working on it for 5 years. Each issue is like 56 pages, oversized, as I say. It's a crazy, cosmic, out there story. If you like 2000 AD, if you like the old heavy metal, magazine, that kind of thing. And it relates to the Little Bird miniseries, if you read that a couple of years ago. So that's all I can say about it, pretty much. It's worth checking out if, you're looking for something different.
Yeah, and that's the cool deal, and that's what, a lot of times where people will say, like, oh, well, G.I. Joe's hardly indie. They had 500 covers, and it's Image and stuff, but I always like when you get something like Precious Metal.
It's
like
freaky,
you said,
it's weird. It's a kaiju battles in here, but not your regular Japanese-style manga kaiju. It's like insane, psychedelic LSD.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Going on.
I always, and like I said, I always like to hear suggestions that I was going to read. And actually, I think Precious Metal is one of the ones that Sully always tells me to read as well when he gives me his rundown each week. He has some interesting takes. I'll tell you that. We should get him on sometime. So again, if you want to have a 7-hour show, the guy loves everything. And then we'll defend it to the nth degree, even though when he does defend it, it seems like he doesn't like it, but he likes it for weird reasons. He's a wacky guy. He likes Jeff the Landshark a lot.
He'll probably get more Marvel comics on if we have Solo.
That's what he does. He does seem to like it.
To be fair to him, he reads all the review copies, he goes for it, and then he's very positive.
He is, and positive. To him, again, if he has a good time with it and it doesn't bother, like, it's weird things that bother him. You have a comic that has a lot of pinks and purples, he's out. But you put onomatopoeia, he's in. He loves it. That's what
he loves that onomatopoeia.
Oh, he loves it so much. He's onomatosully. That's what his name is. So, but yeah, we should get him on sometime. That would be really cool. So with that,
just briefly go back to this. I enjoyed it this much. I'm gonna pick up the trade when it comes out. It's not being published till next year. It says May for the trade paperback, but I want to read it, in one go. It's going to be a big book. So
yeah, it would be because they're oversized issues. But that's it. That's our picks of the week. Again, there's a lot of books out there that I think might be on people's list. I haven't gotten to some like Space Ghost. I haven't. And like I said, I did read Transformers and I like that. The idea, somebody's going to say, or a bunch of people like, how can you not pick Transformers? It's got Starscream on a hiss tank. It's hilarious. I even thought it was funny, but I haven't got around to it yet,
and I've heard it's great.
He loses his mind. It's pretty funny, but again, it's just the idea that I don't have as much connection. But I do recognize it as a really good book and one of the best books out there, and it'll be on a lot of people's end of year list, even though there's like political talk and stuff that always ends up getting involved. That always drives me nuts, but we'll leave that out of it. But with that too, there's always tons of books. I don't sometimes even know everything that came out. One of the things I do want to point out, I didn't even read it, but I have read before. They're coming out with Black Sad books, and I love Black Sad. I just haven't gotten to read.
I don't know what that is. I saw that.
So good.
I don't know it.
It's anthropomorphic, cat deal, and it's like one of the better noir stories. It just happens to be that they're cats and dogs and things like that.
Okay.
So good. It's so good. It was one thing when I ended up, I think I started reading it. It was during the shutdown, where I was just trying to find things because new comics weren't coming out at the one point. And I ended up, I think it was like my library deal, or it was like one of those things that I ended up reading it through that app. And I loved it. I thought it was great, but I haven't read. I don't even know, somebody might say, oh, these are reprints or whatever. I don't know because I haven't really looked, but I did see that on there. I was like, oh God, I gotta check that out. But again, there's so many things.
Recommended it to me before, Jim, so I'll have to check it out.
It was
it's ringing bells now.
It's so good. It's really good.
It's got really great art, some real distinctive art. Is that right?
Yeah, and I believe it's also another like French deal. So I know you're from Manchester and English. They have a little tenuous deal with the French, right? So with that, you go.
Enemy.
My mom from England, like she never badmouthed the French. It's the Irish that she went after, and somehow the Scottish too. Oh my God, my mom would go to town on the Scots and the Irish. She hated them, and I don't like my mom, so there you go. She's a jerk. But with all that is it. We did go way over, probably a record now, but I hope that people enjoyed it, probably because we haven't done it in a while, and we like to talk about comics. Let us know what you thought were the best books of the week, and you could argue with us a bit, but it's all for fun and games. I'm starting to decide that I can't get involved in these fights anymore, and I know that that's the play too. When you're on YouTube, one of the first things that people will tell you, you've told me, don't get involved. Like the comments, just shake it off and whatnot. Be like Taylor Swift, right? But I like to interact with people, so I end up I don't shake it off.
You can't help it, can you? You just can't stop yourself.
Yeah, I can't. So try to be nice. I just wanted to throw an APT reference in for Rose. She's my bias. She was my Blackpink bias, old Rose. But with that, people are like, what the hell is he talking about? But with that is it. So thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining me. Great. Please go and check out Gray's Wakasashi's Tea House YouTube channel. It'll be in the show notes or the description. And check out all that. And we will talk to you all later.
You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.